So in this online tutorial, we're going to talk about how to choose a topic for a thesis statement. In other words, what are the parts of a literary work that you can write about in an analytical essay. Be sure you take good notes on your graphic organizer and upload that to Canvas for an effort grade. Let's start by gaining some context for this online tutorial. Take a look at the thesis statement here down below, and what I'd like you to do is just write an explanation of why you think this thesis statement is an effective one. There's a slight grammatical error here too. Reflection, it should say initiates here. So go ahead and hit pause and write your explanation now. So the purpose of the tutorial is to be able to name or identify the aspects of a literary text that can serve as topics for a thesis statement. In other words, what are the parts of a literary work that you can write about when you do write an essay? So let's record a key concept first, and that is, what are the three components of an effective thesis statement? Again, here's our thesis statement. In Dickens' A Christmas Carol, Scrooge's reflections on his past initiates his self-improvement. There's a grammatical error here. This should say initiate. So the first effective component of a thesis statement is a subject. And what this is a broad area of study. In our class in English, the subject of our thesis statements this year is always going to be the name of the literary text that we're writing about. In world history, it could be a war, a time period, a civilization. In faith formation, it could be perhaps a book in the Bible or a world religion. So the first component of an effective thesis statement is a subject. The second component of an effective thesis statement is a topic. And what that is now a more sort of specific aspect or narrow aspect of the subject. And so the topic here in this thesis statement is some narrow aspect of the text, A Christmas Carol, and in this case it's Scrooge's reflections on his past. Again, there's that grammatical error, subject-verb agreement there, so correct that on your graphic organizer. So in English, it's always going to be a specific aspect of the literary text that we're writing about. In world history, it could be some specific aspect of a war or time period or civilization. And then in faith formation, it could be maybe some specific aspect of a book in the Bible or a world religion, etc. The third and most important component of a thesis statement is the associative claim. And so in this thesis statement, in Dickens' A Christmas Carol, again, there's our subject, Scrooge's reflections on his past. Again, there's our topic, the specific part of the book that we're writing about. And now here's our claim, initiates his self-improvement. The associative claim is simply the ideas that you associate with the topic. And remember, when we think of associations, we're always thinking in terms of a quality, in terms of a value, in terms of a condition. And in this case, self-improvement, he's thought, the writer, of an associative value, a really particular value that came to mind by observing this topic at work. Again, in the end, we're just trying to think of what's the connotative meaning, what's the connotative understanding that you gain by reading about the topic in the literary text. Okay, so now the question is, what aspects of a literary work, whether it be a novel, a poem, or a play, can serve as topics for a thesis statement? So this summer you read Navigating Early. What parts of the text could you write about? Next, you're going to read the Odyssey here in a couple of weeks. What parts of the Odyssey can you write about in an essay? You're going to read The House on Mango Street as well, and then we're going to finish the year with Romeo and Juliet. So what parts of these texts can you write about in an essay? Well, one type of topic that you can choose is theme. And so what does this mean? This means that you're going to focus on a central idea that we see over and over again in the text, or a central message that the author tends to explore. And to give you some examples, in the Odyssey, we're going to talk in great detail about this theme, the theme of Xenia in this epic poem, which we'll define for you when we get there. In The House on Mango Street, there's definitely this theme of coming of age that we're going to talk about in great detail. And then, of course, in The Tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, there's this theme, or this central idea of young love that Shakespeare explores. So theme is a central idea or message that you can write about in a literary work. Another option is, of course, to write about a particular character. And some really important questions or concepts to think about is, does this character change or transform? That would be something that you could focus on. If you decide to write about a character, you can think about what's their function or role in the novel. If you decide to write about character, you could also think about, is this character similar to or different from or both another character in the text? And then finally, pay attention to how characters react to settings or to other characters. You could definitely write about that in an essay. Another possible topic is plot, and basically what this means is that you're going to write about particular occurrences that happen in the text. So one thing that might be important to consider is, do you see any conflicts that happen? Maybe conflicts that happen multiple times. You could definitely focus a topic in a thesis statement on that. And then, of course, any repeated things that happen in a text that end up furthering your understanding of what's happening. So plot is pretty basically is there a particular occurrence that you would like to write about? Another possible topic is setting. So some things to consider: conditions or values that a setting promotes. When you look at a particular setting, is there a particular idea that the author is trying to convey through that setting? You can take a look at a character's responses to a setting. You could take a look at how settings maybe in a text are similar or different from one another. And then, of course, the last thing you could pay attention to is how a setting functions in a text. What's the point of it? Why does the author include it in the text, essentially? A more sophisticated topic would be to focus on style. And when you choose to focus on style, or you choose a style topic, you're really thinking about the choices that a writer makes when they wrote this play or this poem or this novel. So are there particular types of images, particular words that you see them use over and over again? Then you could focus a topic on that. Maybe you notice that a writer arranges sentences in a particular way very consistently. Well, how does the arrangement of those sentences pretty much promote or convey the idea that you have in this novel? And then finally, you can pay attention to how a writer sequences or arranges the story. If, for example, the Odyssey that we are going to read here in a couple of weeks, it's arranged very particularly. Why is it arranged that way? The movie Pulp Fiction, if you've seen that movie, it's arranged in a very particular way. So that's one consideration when you think about style. And of course, you can always write about a symbol, and I would think that you're probably most familiar with this particular topic. And so what does this deal with exactly? Well, with this particular topic, you are going to choose a particular character, a particular setting, or a particular action, or a particular object to write about. And basically what you're going to say is that this particular character, setting, action, or object represents or symbolizes some larger idea or meaning. And again, we're always thinking in terms of qualities, conditions, and values. But what's important to bear in mind is that a symbol, a character can function as a symbol, a setting, an action, or an object. A seventh possibility is you could write about an allusion. And so all this is writing about a particular reference that you see in the text. For example, in a poem that we're going to read when we examine the Odyssey, we're going to see a lot of biblical allusions in this poem, My Father in the Navy. In the Odyssey itself, we see this mythological allusion to Agamemnon a couple of times in the text. That would be a possible topic to explore in a thesis statement. junior year, when you read The Great Gatsby, we see a lot of moments where the author creates a historical allusion to the New World. And so, again, an allusion is just simply a reference. Do we see the writer constantly reference a particular biblical, historical, literary, or mythological narrative? And then you can also write about point of view, which can also be a pretty sophisticated topic choice. And with this, what you're basically trying to think about is, how does the point of view function in the text? Why did the writer choose that? Why is the first person choice important? What idea does it convey or reinforce? Are third person omniscient? Are third person objective? Or third person limited? In the Odyssey, which we're going to read very soon, we see a shift between first person and also third person omniscience. So why do we see those two different point of views? What's the point? That would definitely be a possible topic. So 3 more options for choosing topics in a thesis statement would be to really to choose a theme, a character, an occurrence, a plot occurrence, a setting, a stylistic choice, a symbol, allusion, or point of view, and to specifically explore that through one of Aristotle's topics. So what does that mean exactly? Well, what that means is that you could, say, choose a character to write about, and you could choose to explore that character through definition, where basically you would be defining an idea from the thesis statement. So here's an example of a thesis statement that is really wanting to define an idea in the essay. So notice all the 3 components of an effective thesis statement are here. We do see the subject, which is always the text, To Kill a Mockingbird in this case, and then we see the topic, in this case a character topic. They want to write about Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird. And then finally, and most importantly, their claim, which is Scout is a lady. And so what they're going to do is they're going to define this idea of lady in their essay. So we'll see different definitions in each paragraph. In paragraph 1, they think a lady is somebody who behaves this way or does these things. In paragraph 2, a lady is also somebody who does these things or behaves these ways. So this is a really good option for an essay. So when you choose a character, when you choose a setting, when you choose to write about an object, you can always approach it through the lens of definition. And when you choose a theme, a character, plot, setting, style, topic, symbol, allusion, point of view, you could always write a comparison essay. So maybe you choose to compare 2 characters. You show how 2 or more items are alike, whether it be that they're similar, contrasting, or maybe even both. So I think a good way for you to wrap up the lecture would be to complete these sentence starters and to really think about the types of topics that you have chosen in the past in some of the analytical essays that you've written, or some of the descriptive essays perhaps that you've written. So for thesis statements that I've written in the past, I have chosen these topics. So really think about, have you written about a character before? Have you written about a setting, etc.? But I also make note of, what are some of the topics you've never written about? Have you never written about point of view? Have you never written about a stylistic choice that a writer makes? So before you wrap up this lecture, just go ahead and complete those 2 sentence starters and really think about what you really have focused a thesis statement on in the past, and maybe what you might try this year in a thesis statement.